gears and talk about Doppler. I've got a bunch of questions about Doppler Shift, how it's used to measure blood flow. Can you explain that in a way that, makes sense?
Doppler is all about detecting changes in frequency that happen because things are moving. Think about the sound of a car horn as it passes you. The pitch changes, right? That's the Doppler effect. In ultrasound, we use this to figure out how fast blood is flowing. Basically, the faster those blood cells are moving, the bigger the frequency change we pick up.
So that Doppler equation, it pops up in a lot of the practice questions. That's basically how we go from that frequency shift to actually measuring speed. It seems pretty complex.
The Doppler equation definitely looks intimidating, but all it's really doing is taking into account a bunch of factors, like the frequency of the ultrasound wave the machine sends out, the frequency shift caused by the moving blood cells, how fast sound travels in tissue, and the angle between the ultrasound beam and the blood flow. Plug all those into the equation, and boom, you get the velocity of the blood.
Wow, that's a lot to keep track of. Can you give me an example of how those things would actually affect a velocity calculation in a real situation?
Sure, imagine you're using Doppler to measure blood flow in an artery. Now, if the angle between your ultrasound beam and the direction the blood's flowing is too steep, the velocity you calculate is going to be lower than the real velocity. That's because the cosine of that angle gets smaller, which makes the whole equation's result smaller. So you want to get that angle as close to 0 degrees as you can for the most accurate reading.
That makes a lot of sense. Speaking of things that can be confusing, I see a lot about the colors used in color Doppler. I know blue usually means flow away from the transducer, but does that always mean it's venous flow? I feel like there's a trick here.
Yeah, that's a really common misunderstanding. Blue in color Doppler doesn't automatically equal venous flow. It just means the blood is moving in the opposite direction of whatever color they're using for flow towards the transducer, which is usually red.
Wait, so blue doesn't always mean venous flow. So how do I know what I'm looking at?
It depends on how the transducer is positioned and how the blood flow is going compared to the beam. The key is to check that color bar on the screen. It tells you which color is which. You also got to think about the anatomy. Are you looking at an artery or a vein?
So color Doppler is showing relative direction more than specific types of blood vessels. That's really important to remember. This